So you hit that button, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to wait for that green light to come on as it does. What's going on, Lore Reloaded? Lore Masters, hope you guys are doing well. I'm actually Lore Reloaded. That's a good way to start out with somebody on the chat with me. Hope everybody's having a great day today. Today I got Joshua from the Avalon universe, the executive producer. All roads lead to the Avalon universe through Joshua. Some might say the only real Trek that is out there. Joshua, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today, James?
Man, I am living the life because we haven't been talking the entire time for like 30 minutes before this went live, so we got to make it look like we instantly started talking just right now. Got William and Lisa in the house. Hope you
Just
guys
right
doing well.
now.
Yeah, just right now. Yeah, I instantly got a hold of you and just went live because that's how it works.
Well, it was rather, spur of the moment. You
Yeah.
were kind of like, "Hey, do you want to do this today?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I was supposed to do another one with somebody else yesterday, and it didn't work out. So if you're listening, I just kind of worked out this way. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't get mad. It was me. It
Yeah.
was me. So, today we're going to have an interesting conversation, but let me say this before we get started, and of course I'm going to have to repeat it because people come and go as the conversation goes. Also, let me know how the sound is. He should be good and amplified with me, but if not, I'll try to turn him up a little bit more. But before we get started, we're going to be talking about quite a few things, including like Axanar, Star Trek Discovery, the Avalon universe, Picard, all of this really fun stuff. And this is about a conversation, and I don't mind if you guys come in and talk about the ideas specifically, but let's not go out of our way to badmouth people, either corporations or people. Okay, so if you don't like CBS, it's great. I don't care. If you don't like Alec, that's great. I don't care. If you don't like Joshua, definitely put that in there because that's going to be good content. So we can play off of that and make so much. Arctic Fox already helping out the channel by supporting $25. Hope my day is good. My day is doing great because you're here, Arctic. I got Joshua on the line and Arctic is in the chat. I mean, how can my day get any better? It can't. That's proof. So, like we were saying before, what really inspired you to, and I'm sure you get these kinds of questions all the time, but it's
Yeah.
starting base. What inspired you to do like the Avalon universe specifically?
Well, I've been a Star Trek fan for life. I started at like 5 years old, seeing the animated series when I was just a little kid. I watched Counter at Farpoint when it aired the very first time in 1987, and by the time I was a teenager, I would say my story parallels a lot of other fan filmmakers. Like, for example, there's old Super 8 footage of Vic Mignogna when he was a little kid running around, with a phaser and a tricorder. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to make my own Star Trek episodes with my own characters and all that kind of stuff. And I tried to do it. I signed up at a local public access television and tried to learn, how to make something there. And I really just couldn't make it to the quality level that I wanted. I had big aspirations of big dreams of making my own Star Trek and quickly figured out that it would be really difficult. My parents were in the media industry. So, I learned early on how to tell stories, how to use a camera, that sort of thing. And even though I couldn't really make Star Trek when I was a teenager, the filmmaking bug did bite. And so I went on to become a video producer and just sort of a normal indie filmmaker. And I made indie films for 10 years, just my own stuff. And I in 2006 or so, at the very beginning of like YouTube and all of that, I found all of the Star Trek fan films that were hitting YouTube when it became a thing. I saw Star Trek New Voyages and all of the other things that were coming out back then, Hidden Frontier and all of that. And I really loved what they were doing. I was sitting here going, gosh, I wish I could be a part of this so badly. And I really couldn't back then. And then Star Trek Continues came along, then Axanar. And I was just like, wow, imagine what it would be like if I could go work on this or direct an episode of this or something. Like just my dream of being able to do something like that. But I always worried that if I made my own film, I could do it to the quality level that I wanted. And right as the Star Trek fan film guidelines became a thing, um, you know, I ended up seeing this thing called Project Small Access, which was, a dedicated group of people trying to give fan films to save fan films. And so I joined that because I was really into fan films. And Project Small Access eventually became a thing called Fan Film Forum. It was run by my friend Jonathan Lane. And I started seeing this one person post in Fan Film Forum all the time, and his name was Vance Major. And this was a guy who, I mean, he was literally taking his phone, putting on a Star Trek costume, and going out in the woods and making Star Trek fan films with his friends. And I thought, look at this guy. This guy's got more courage than I do. This guy's courageous. This guy is willing to he doesn't care. He make a Star Trek fan film and he's going to do it no matter what. And he was doing them all the time. And I was like commenting on it, going like, good job, man. Like it's amazing that you're doing this. And he friend requested me and we started talking on the phone. And about that time, a couple of my friends and I were wanting to make a filmmaking project together just to kind of help us all grow in the craft. Two of them wanted to be actors, and so they wanted to do different things, play different types of characters than they played in the past. I wanted to grow as a filmmaker and a director. And kind of the script that we were coming up with wasn't working for my friend Tyler Donovan, and he kept like saying, I really don't want to do this one. And I finally just said, Tyler, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I want to do sci-fi. And I was sitting here thinking, man, that'd be so expensive. How would we do that? Would we build sets? I mean, what are you going to do with this? Then Vance just coincidentally during a phone conversation, well, you could go shoot on the old Star Trek Continues sets. And of course, Star Trek Continues, one of the greatest fan series ever made, had finished its run, and their sets were available for other fan films to shoot on. And he connected me with Ray Tessie, who now owns the sets. And it was something like 6 weeks later, we were down there shooting Ghost Ship. And then 6 weeks after that, it was on YouTube. If you had told me back in 2017, 18, when we were first planning to do this, that it would get 500,000 views, I wouldn't have believed you, but here it is. And now we have this channel with 12,500 subscribers and almost 1 million views. And we're working with Axanar, and I got to meet Alec Peters, and I've gone through and met all the other big fan film guys, Vic Mignogna and all those kind of people. And it's been a really neat journey so far.
Yeah, and you've done quite a bit of work. I mean, the Avalon universe is one of the most respected, I think, fan films out there, at least when it comes to YouTube and everything. And I love Vance's work as well. As I told you before we got on, that sometimes I'll just jump on live stream and we'll just watch fan films. And Avalon and what Vance does is a lot of what we look at. And you brought up Axanar. And you recently did or at least uploaded, I'm not sure how much you personally had in the project, but uploaded on your channel. What was the name of it?
It was called Interlude.
Interlude, that's right. And
yeah.
It was an Axanar universe video,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. I would be really... I really enjoy... I mean, again, so a lot of new people joining stuff. We're not talking about anybody behind the scenes. We're just talking about the universes and stuff like that.
Sure.
I really enjoy the Axanar... I really would enjoy an Axanar universe because I think it's a really interesting idea. And so it kind of leans into... Because I'll say this. I think, for me, I may have seen fan films before. I'm not really sure. But I can tell you what got me really interested and passionate about fan films, at least to the point that I wanted to share them with a lot of viewers, was Prelude to Axanar.
Yeah,
it was just one of the best that I've ever seen, and it was so well done. And I think that I would say of the Avalon universe, I'd say Vance's work. I would say in the Axanar universe, Axanar, Avalon, and Vance is who I wanted to get out of there. My brain sometimes goes faster than my mouth. I think that it fits the spirit of Legacy Trek a lot better than Star Trek Discovery or Star Trek Picard. We kind of discussed this before, but I'd be curious on your thoughts. Honestly, I wonder, a lot of people get mad at me when I say this, I wonder if, and I'll speak up a little bit, people saying I sound a little quiet, I wonder if the way you guys do Trek can even be done in a corporate setting, because when you look at
Yeah.
CBS and Paramount Plus now is who they are, they have to like cast a wide net. They can't just go for Trekkies and make enough money. I don't think. I think they really
Hmm.
have to get the younger generation as well, and that's why it's so different than what you guys do, at least in spirit. I'd be curious on your thoughts, though. If you disagree, let me know.
It's interesting that you say that because we're hearing that a lot these days. And, if you go back to, say, 2013, 2014, I read a thread, like on Reddit, that was an old thread from back then where people were talking about fan films, and they're like, fan films are so bad, like the acting's so bad, or they're cheesy or whatever. And but fan films kept Star Trek alive for like a long time. Because when Enterprise went off the air, for a while, there was nothing. For several years, there was literally nothing. And so the only new Star Trek you were ever getting was plugging into something like a Star Trek New Voyages or a Hidden Frontier. And then Prelude comes out, and then boom, there's all this hype and all this stuff going on. And um, I feel like where we're at now, instead of hearing these negative comments about how cheesy fan films are, we're seeing people say, this is the kind of Star Trek we long for. This is the kind of Star Trek that we want to see, because you're right in that the way that modern Star Trek is made, and don't get me wrong, I don't hate modern Star Trek as much as some people do, but it isn't classic Star Trek, and I understand why people don't like it. It is the motivation behind making it is what the studio tells them to do. They say, you've got to have these types of storylines, you have to have these types of characters, these are your guidelines. That we talk about fan film guidelines. Actual modern corporate Star Trek, I'm sure, has its own guidelines that they have to follow, which is why you get these Mary Sue characters like Michael Burnham. Whereas we're not really, we're not as constrained as people think we are. For one thing, CBS has been really cool about leaving us alone for the most part. The thought that the guidelines ended fan films is completely false, because there are more fan films being made now than ever. What CBS was going for, and I truly believe them on this, is that they wanted fan films to authentically be made by fans.
Right.
There was, in fact, an arms race going on where it was, who could have the biggest budget, or who could have the most, former Star Trek actors. And it was an arms race. And now it is, if you've got a Star Trek fan film that has the entire cast of Star Trek Voyager, with the exception of Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan, you have 3 TOS characters or 2 TOS characters, and you have half the cast of Deep Space Nine in it, and you have people behind the camera that worked on Berman era Star Trek, you're not making a fan film, you are making Star Trek.
Well,
And so I can see why CBS would be kind of frustrated by that.
yeah, I have a little bit of a theory on that too. That and it kind of goes along with what you're saying. I also think that it seemed to me, because I did quite a bit of research into this, because it comes up a lot on my channel, especially when I talk about Discovery or whatever. It seemed to me that for the longest time, like you said, CBS, because the Star Trek property, licensing that is a lot, and it's very valuable. Like, you have Star Trek games and things people want to do, and so to own a Star Trek license, or rent one, or however to license it is something very lucrative. But CBS,
Yeah.
I think CBS at the time was okay with doing your own thing as long as you weren't going to compete. Now, this is speaking to action. This isn't speaking to purpose or person. I do think, and you don't have to speak on this if you don't want to, I do think that Alec, when maybe he got a little bit more starry-eyed than he probably should have, because we did make a Star Trek property. We used Star Trek fan film, and then that was going to be funded for a studio. Like, I was there, I saw it, I read it. That did happen, and I think that was when CBS said, "Okay, we need to chill out." And then after we chilled out with that, and then after that was over, CBS seems to have just relaxed. They really just, as you said, don't want to do a fan film like Arms Race and actually make Star Trek universe stuff. Just, you can make something look nice, just don't get too on board with it.
Well, I definitely think that I mean, I'm not going to say that Axanar wasn't a factor.
Right.
I do sort of believe them in that they probably looked at Renegades in particular, which had crowdfunded nearly $1 million and had a lot of Star Trek alums involved, and went, they probably were uncomfortable with that. And then there was another filmmaker that was about to, crowdfund over $100,000 to make an Enterprise era film. And then you had, phase 2 was regularly having Star Trek alums on it. And then you have Continues doing the same thing. And they probably just thought that it was getting a little out of hand. And yeah, people want to ask where all of the money with Axanar went. I would imagine that the studio was probably a big part of that. Right. And I don't see that as like a grift. I see that as probably just a miscalculation, a mistake that was made where, maybe they should have just shot on James Colley's set or something like that. But Alec wanted to have his own studio, and, the rent was expensive. And so I think that was probably the biggest factor on what happened to the money. You're fighting a lawsuit for a long time and paying rent on a studio. So I'm sure that was a factor, but people tend to blame Axanar solely for it, and I don't think Axanar is completely responsible. But honestly,
I wasn't attacking Alec, by the way. Sorry,
I know.
You, but I wasn't attacking Alec. I was just saying what it really seemed like, because it came immediately after that.
Well, I'm sure it was a factor because what Axanar was doing is they were wanting to portray, a pre-TOS war with the Klingons, which also the plot of Star Trek Discovery season 1. So I'm sure that was a huge factor. And then Discovery launched this teaser. I don't know if you remember this, but they launched this little teaser that was like Discovery coming out of an asteroid or something, and it looked really bad. It was like less than fan film quality CGI.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people sitting there going, okay, so you're putting this out, this garbage, and then fan films are doing this. When you talk about the guidelines, I feel like the guidelines distill, like there's an old scripture in the Bible where somebody's like going to Jesus and they're like, what's the most important of the 10 commandments? And he's like, well, really it comes down to 2 things: love God and love your neighbor. And it's kind of like that with the guidelines, where it's like you could actually distill the guidelines down to don't compete with CBS and make money, and don't create something that could be confused as something made by CBS. And really, that's all it comes down to. They don't actually care all that much if we kind of fudge the guidelines a little bit. Like, so if you make a fan film that's 40 minutes instead of 30, they're not really going to care. They've never said a word to us. If you, if you do a couple of things, if you make more than one film with the same character, they really don't care all that much. Look at Vance. He's made 100. Now, if you made a fan film with $1 million budget and you had John Delancey and Tony Todd in it, yeah, they're probably going to be like, you guys probably shouldn't do that. But I think it would take a lot of work to actually get them to be like, hey, now, because I've seen a lot of people violate the guidelines, and CBS, I just don't think they care what we're doing right now. They're so wrapped up in what they got going on with their own brand, and honestly, on a large scale, we can't compete with them anyway. I mean, they can make all these different shows. The only thing I can do is make 2 15-minute segments a year. So it's like, I can't really compete with them in any real way.
Right. And, not anti-trucker, I'm sorry. Rodan says, so their guidelines say don't make things better than us. I mean, yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable either, because that's stealing someone's intellectual property. So yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I guess it really. So do you keep with? So I agree with you, and here's my theory, and you kind of said it. I think that as long as you don't do what you said, CBS isn't going to get riled. I'll be honest with you. I have a couple of ideas and a couple of things that I've been working towards that I'm probably going to go over that 15-minute mark, but I really don't think they're going to come after me because I'm not going to make
No.
anything. I'm not going to make anything near what Discovery does, right? So it's not really going to be a big issue. Plus, suing a single dad doesn't look good on CNN, and I'll make sure to be on CNN. So I mean, beyond that, it's I really don't think that it's going to be a big deal. But do you keep with the standards all that much? Do you try or not really? Because
You mean following the guidelines?
yeah,
We sort of do. I mean, um, we're one thing that they say is you can only do like, two 15-minute segments and then you're done. You can't have like a continuing story. And we've violated that in that we have a continuing story.
yeah, I think the universe is a cheat because
Yeah.
technically they're not connected, but they're all within a universe, the same universe. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah.
I don't mean to.
No, no. And that's literally the only actual way we're really doing it. But um, and sometimes we'll have one of those 15-minute segments go over, 15 minutes. It'll be 16 or something. But it's like, I just don't think that they care about that. Like, again, if we were spending $1 million and we had Marina Sirtis in our fan film, then I think they would get upset. But I think with what we're doing, they just don't really care.
Right. By the way, Cedric Taylor helping out the channel says he's down with the Avalon universe. Not sure if I told you about that or not. Yeah, you got a lot of
Cool.
Avalon universe fans here.
I appreciate that. We're working hard and we've got a lot of exciting things coming.
Do you think? Yeah, there's a fan funding in the pinned tweet for you guys. Just check it out. The short URL. Take a look at it right there. Looking at their next project coming up. I guess we kind of discussed it, but do you think the Avalon universe could exist and be a CBS property that works and would be actual people would actually watch it, given what we see from Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks?
They might. I mean, the only thing that I would say about that would be what we're trying to do is okay, so like if you look at Discovery, there's this just wildly divergent visual style with it and a wildly divergent storytelling style with it. And I think it's to the point where it's so modern that people don't really like it all that much. And so I think what Avalon Universe offers that is unique is that it is somewhat of an updated visual style, but not so updated that it's just like an absolute departure. And I think that what you could do is have a version of it that, bigger scale and a bigger budget would maintain a visual style that people would call back to and be very impressive, and a storytelling style that would be very classic Star Trek. And I think people would like that, but you'd be able to tell new stories. And then the creative motivation of Avalon Universe for me is all Star Treks in one Star Trek. And so there's some thread of every version of Star Trek in Avalon Universe. There's an influence of every type of Star Trek in it. You can do things like look at our costumes and see that. For our Vulcan Doctor character, she's wearing a blue uniform. Well, in classic Star Trek, medical wore blue, but she's wearing a white like overcoat or a white lab coat. And so like Dr. Crusher would wear a coat, but we're doing white because in Discovery they do white. And she's wearing metal delta, and even though it's a blue outfit, it's a Star Trek Beyond style outfit. But if I kind of think that if you take the Star Trek Beyond style uniforms and then you put that really neat looking Discovery badge on them, it looks like a TNG outfit. And then of course she's wearing a skirt like Dr. Pulaski. So there's just like this interesting, like there's some influence of a lot of different Star Treks there. We have a lot of Easter eggs where we call back to various different forms of classic Star Trek. So we're trying to have a Star Trek that has something of all Star Trek in it, in the influence in the L cars we have, or the type of lighting we do, or the type of stories we tell. we're trying to have a lot of different Star Trek influences in it, even though it's set in a TOS era. Interesting stuff like holographic displays and things like that. So it's a visually updated thing. It's a kind of an avenue where if you have an alternate universe, you can tell different stories that aren't necessarily tied to classic Star Trek canon, but you can still tell a Star Trek type story. So that's what I think it has to offer.
Yeah, when talking about aesthetics, so there's a few things there. Talking about aesthetics, I'm on the fence about that. Trek is always known for changing aesthetics in one way or another, and
Yeah.
so like updating and upgrade. I'm not saying that that's the route I would have went, but I'm not too upset about them updating.
Yeah.
I do think like you said, you can actually update but keep it with what it is. I think Star Wars does that excellently. Like
Yes.
say what you will about the Force Awakens or anything like that. They kept the aesthetics, but they still made it look new. So I think that it is possible. I think Avalon proves and Axonar
Well,
proves
like
that.
a really good example of that is Rogue One.
Yeah.
It was set it was set right before A New Hope, and they used all the same designs and aesthetics from classic Star Wars. And like you said, they just it looks new and was shot in modern times, but they still kept a very modern look, a very classical look to it. So
Right.
yeah, I think exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, you could watch a New Hope and then watch, like you said, Rogue One, and you would still recognize the technology. Like it's not like watching the original series and then going instantly to Discovery.
Right.
And so yeah, I think that in that instance it would be something that really does appeal to it. I'd be curious. I guess this is just. Would you change anything about your writing, given what you see, what they're bringing out with Discovery and stuff, or would you keep your writing basically the same?
Well, we are going to change a lot of stuff about our writing because we're moving into a new chapter. And previously, I had worked with a collaborative partner. We've since parted ways, and there were some differing visions on where that should go going forward.
Don't talk about
And
what we were. Don't talk about our history. Don't tell
and
the people.
and well, what I can tell you is that the vision that I have going forward is to do a lot of lighthearted and fun adventure stories, to do a lot of stories where the characters are all part of a group, all part of a family. They all contribute. They all work in sync with one another. A true, like, you know, united crew, instead of it kind of being all centered around one character. And I feel like we're going to do things that have. I've always wanted to do, a solid mix of drama, humor, and action. I want to see all of those in there at some point, just a balance. Because if you look at the great sci-fi shows, if you look at like Deep Space Nine, or you look at Stargate SG-1, they have a lot of range to them. A Deep Space Nine episode can make you laugh your head off, or it can bring you to the brink of tears, or it can like, whoa, that was really something. And the same was true of Stargate SG-1. You were laughing, and it was whimsical in a lot of episodes, and then they had episodes where it was just really dead serious. And that's what I want for this. I want to have films that are dramatic and powerful, but I also want films where it's fun, and you can laugh, and you can really get to know and have enjoyable, friendly, likable characters. The joy of something like Star Trek The Next Generation or Stargate SG-1 is you wanted to spend your time with those people. You've had a bad day at work or a bad day at school or whatever it was you were doing, and you came home and you just needed to get out. You just needed to escape. And you were spending that hour or that 30 minutes with people you liked and you wanted to be around, and those people made you laugh and they made you cry and you cared about them. And that's what I hope to have going forward, is not just people that are like, oh, we're here doing awesome things because we're just awesome. they have to prove themselves to the audience. They have to make the audience like them, and that's what I want it to be going forward.
Let me ask you this, because I'd be curious, and if you don't want to go down this route, we don't have to. One thing I think that Discovery is attempting, not Discovery, but Star Trek overall is attempting to do, we saw it a lot in Discovery, was to diversify the characters and to enhance and somewhat focus to a degree on sexuality, mentality, ideology, things like that. Is that something you think that detracts? And would you be, again, let's just say that they came to you and they said, Joshua, we have to have you as a part. We have to make Avalon canon. Is that would be something you'd be open to, like, impacting into your stories? And if you want to go a different route, we can. There's no.
You mean like exploring a diversity of romantic relationships within the context of the universe?
Yeah. So one thing, and again, I actually think this isn't a negative thing necessarily, but one thing I think that Trek does well now. A lot of people can disagree with it. I think that they normalize and bring in like homosexual relationships, looking at trans identity, things like that. Some people say they overdo it. I don't know that I'm convinced of that, but that's something that's important. That's something that they actually walk the walk on. We're not talking about Disney. They put it right in your face. Is that something that you think should be explored through Trek or would be interesting?
Well, I think that it's an issue. And
Sure.
and the one thing that Star Trek has always done is explored those types of issues. Um, and my personal viewpoint on it is that your life is your life, and you have the right to live your life the way that makes you happy and love who you want to love and whatever else. I think that if you want to pursue those issues, you just, I would say, do it in a more creative way.
Sure.
And I'll give you an example of this. Like, we talk about one big issue that's important is diversity. Well, I live in a geographical location where there's not a lot of diversity. It's
Right.
hard to find ethnically diverse actors. And now I'm really happy that we have in the film that we're premiering tomorrow, called Cosmic Stream, we have an actress that is her ancestry is from India. In one we're going to release on Halloween. It's called Agent of New Worlds. We're going to have our new lead actress, Pkwy, and she is Hispanic. And we're going to have Warren Hawk, who is African American, as our new captain. And we're going to have a character named Ayoka, who is Native American, played by a Native American actress. And so we're happy about that. But I'm sitting here looking at diversity. Well, like, this is Star Trek. This is the future. You're not even going to show diversity in the same ways you do today. So it's like, go beyond humans. I was like, hey, this is a starship where so many people have died. So let's let's have a lot of aliens on there. Let's say that it's like, taboo for humans to even want to be on this ship. So you've got like, Andorians, and you've got Orions, and you've got some like Roswell Gray looking aliens, and the characters are walking through going, is it just me, or are there not a lot of humans on this ship? And the captain's like, yeah, humans don't really want to serve on this ship, with all the people that have died. And so I want to find an interesting sci-fi way to show diversity. So for me, that's aliens. Let's see a bunch of aliens. That's diversity. Let's have guys that have big eyes. And so I think that if I were going to explore sexuality, I would do it in some like funny sci-fi way, like the Orville, where you had the dude who's just like a slime ball on the ground, and he's like falling in love with the doctor or whatever. I'd try to find some like comical way to have like aliens with like 5 different sexes, or like some kind of Rick and Morty silly sci-fi way of doing that.
They I don't know if you watch SF Debris. He did a thing that was interesting, talking about how Odo should have been, because Odo ultimately was a traditional relationship, and they had the opportunity to truly make it alien. And like he gave the scenario. He wasn't serious about it, but he gave the scenario like there was a plant, like a sentient plant type individual,
Hmm.
and they'd asked you, because he's talking about you, a person, to help them prune themselves or something, and they didn't realize that was actually like a mating ritual, or not necessarily mating. I wouldn't go mating ritual, but that was like a dating thing that they didn't
Yeah.
realize that they were getting in a relationship, like to make it truly unique there. It's yeah, I think it's an interesting ideal. I think there are a lot of ways to do it, and I, I I could see that because, like, one of the most interesting one of the things I was thinking about, as you know, I know Trek far too well. I know it better than most writers who write for I'd put my knowledge up against writers. I really would. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would. And one of the things I've noticed is that Starfleet does specifically have ships, whether they meant to or not, that have specific species on them. Like they have
Hmm.
only Vulcan ships, only
Yeah.
human-dominated ships, and it could be interesting to flip that on its head and then challenge that, like have a ship that has mostly aliens and
Yeah.
have a human come on, and that'd be really odd and weird and something they have to deal with. I think that's a really intriguing idea. You know, we should talk about that offline and I don't know, get $1 million donor to so that we can do the alien makeup and everything.
Well, we are doing something sort of like that in that, our character walks onto the bridge of this starship, and the only other human she's seeing there is the captain, and everybody else we're going to have like a Roswell Gray type alien. There's an
Right.
Orion communications officer. The helmsman is Andorian. And so it's like everywhere she's going, she's seeing all these aliens. And
Right.
that's actually an interaction we're going to put in one of the films where she's like, is it just me, or are there not a lot of
Because they
humans
keep
on
dying.
this ship?
Yeah, yeah. That'll
Yeah,
be
and
interesting. Can't wait for that.
so
That's gonna be fun.
so yeah, and that's something I really want to do. Now it's going to increase my makeup budget a little bit, but um, I'm really excited to give that a shot.
We'll get Vance to pay for it. Don't worry about it. He's fine.
Yeah.
Viro brought up an interesting piece here too that I see a little bit, and I've given my comments on it, but I'd be curious your response. He says, yeah, I'm in the minority, but I'm not a fan of fan fictions. I'd rather see people use their talents to make original things. Fan content is a dead end because of canon and the fact that you can't really. I mean, I would bet that you can still use it on a resume, but it's what he's saying. It's a dead end that you can't really expand on it. So what would be your thoughts with that? I think it's.
Well,
I think it's. I'm sorry. I'll just say. I think it's. First off, anytime you do something that you enjoy, it's not a waste of your time. As long as
right.
you're not hurting other people, it doesn't matter if whatever you do, as long as you enjoyed it, and it doesn't hurt other people, it doesn't matter, and it helps you hone your craft. That's my opinion. So what would be yours?
I would completely disagree with that statement because now don't get me wrong, I have done a lot of original things. I did a horror movie a couple of months ago, and I like to write all kinds of very original things, and I hope to do original sci-fi stuff. But I think this is stuff, and here's what I'll tell you as far as it being a dead end. I tried to make a film. There was one film that I tried to get made for forever that I thought people would get behind, and I went to businessmen, I went to all over my community, trying for 7 years to get people to get behind it. Nobody would support it, and just kind of you'd go say, well, I want to make a movie, and they'd look at you funny. They'd be like, movies, that's something people do in Hollywood. They don't do that in Arkansas. And it was discouraging, and I felt like I was just like blown off. And then I start like doing fan films, and I got people I've never even met before. I got some dude in Ohio calling me on the phone going, I'm going to give you $1,000 for your movie. And I'm like, I don't even know you. And he's like, well, what you're doing is cool. Can I give you $1,000? And I'm like, of course you can give me $1,000. And then that guy flew down, and we hung out, and it turns out and we went to my martial art school, and we did some karate together, and we hung out, and we talked about our interests, and we had very similar interests. And I've made friends from all over the world. Like I've watched your videos for years. Now I'm talking to you. And I have met people from Europe, from the UK, from Australia, from literally all over the world, and talked to people I would have never known before if I hadn't done this. And it's been an amazing experience just for that alone. And yes, one, you've got a built-in audience. Two, You're doing something very unique, and it's an opportunity. For me, it was like, at first, it was like, wow, what reason would I have ever had in the past while doing a filmmaking to figure out how to animate a phaser beam? Like, how would I have ever wanted to learn how to do it? When I did, when I I had to learn
Hey,
making tractor beam.
you
I had
just
to learn how to do a transporter
you just
effect.
roboted on us a little bit. We've had a little issues with your
I'm
connection.
sorry, my internet connection has
Oh,
been really bad the past couple of
sure.
days, and I don't know why that
No,
is.
it's fine. It's not a big deal. But when you did what was the name of it?
So when I did Ghost Ship,
There it is. Yeah, go shit. Okay, go ahead.
I had to learn how to animate a phaser beam. I had to learn how to do a transporter effect. And how would I ever, doing something else, how would I ever, have the need to learn how to do that? And so it's like, oh man, I get to learn how to do this. Maybe that'll serve me in some different way later. It made me really a lot better at After Effects.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I think, again, for me too, a really important piece of it is like networking and just meeting fans and just like as you said, those not only professional connections but the personal ones, the friendships and stuff. I think plays a large role as a part of it. Uh, so I agree. I think it's good. See, I'm just gonna have you talk on this the entire time, and then I'll just keep all the super
Well, I
chats,
mean,
and
for
everybody wins.
example, we're gonna go to the 55th year mission, convention in Las Vegas, and we're going to do a panel talking about our fan films and show some stuff from our fan films.
Yeah.
You go from getting nobody in your town to get behind making a regular indie film to showing your stuff in Las Vegas at
Right.
a Star Trek convention. It's a big deal. That's
Yeah.
that's a unique opportunity.
When is that happening in August?
Yeah, that's happening
Yeah.
about August 13th is when we're gonna
Man, I had
be.
to
There's
pass
gonna
on
be
that. Now I regret that.
a
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. There's gonna be a whole, I guess, section of that convention that's devoted to fan films. So on that Thursday, they're gonna do a Constar panel with Vance. Then on Friday, we're doing an Avalon Universe panel, and then on Saturday, they're doing Axanar.
Nice. That's really cool. I didn't know about that. Man, that bums me out that I wasn't able to go to that. Um, that's really cool, though. Okay. Is it going to be live? Is it going to be live stream? Do you know?
I don't know if it's live streamed or not, but I do know they're doing it. So,
Okay.
and I'm really excited to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Well, so I guess the question would become then, because in something that Anti-Tricker has been bringing up is, do you think that ultimately all of this should be spun off into like an original work to do something that Paramount can't do something with, or do you think it's okay just to keep with the fan film? Do you think there's a natural evolution here?
Of course, I do think that definitely we're going to try to do some original sci-fi films someday. It's something I want to do, and there are a lot of great ideas. But I may always do fan fiction as well, just because I love Star Trek so much that how do you ever want to say no to doing that? I mean, I will do all kinds of other film projects, and I have a film company I'm about to start working with. And so it's like, it's really neat that we'll be able to do that and make real movies. But I'm also always on the side, probably going to do fan films as long as I can.
Right. And so what do you got coming out tomorrow? On
So
the
tomorrow, we're going to be releasing a film called Cosmic Stream. And it's going to be the return of Tyler Donovan as Captain Mason. And we're hoping that how that's going to work. The film is basically done. I've got to do some tweaks to it. The way that I'm hoping that'll work out is we'll post like a link to it around midnight tonight, and then it'll be set as a premiere, and then it'll premiere probably about 7 p.m. tomorrow evening.
Okay. So 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for
Yeah.
those you want to know, on the Avalon channel that I just shared. Uh, the only other thing, I don't know if, because I didn't ask you this beforehand, and I should have, the stuff that you, me, and Vance were talking about that's coming up, that'll be
Mm-hmm.
either if this year, but if not this year, next year for sure. I think you're gonna
Yeah.
mention. Can I talk about that for a minute or not really? I
Well,
mean,
Vance now, so I
sorry.
would imagine he doesn't mind talking about it.
Okay, you just roboted. You said Vance is
Oh,
something, but you imagine you're good.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what's wrong with my internet connection today. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
that'll
know
be fine.
everybody's kind of commenting about it, but it's
Oh,
it's 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 normally not like
they
this. But
they talk all kinds of trash. Don't worry about it. Just ignore them. It's the internet.
so yeah, Vance has already announced it, so I would
Okay.
imagine there's no reason that you wouldn't be able to talk about it.
Sure.
I don't think
Well,
he
I mean,
cares.
I won't go too far. It's just I'm excited because December possibly, but August of next year for sure. I'll be coming down and we'll be doing some more. You guys will be doing some more Trek
Hmm.
fan films, and I'll get to assist you guys and be a part of it. So it'll be extremely exciting. Obviously, it'll be pimped on this channel. Of course, all your stuff is generally pimped on this channel. So it's something really exciting, and hopefully a lot of fun stuff will come from it. So, but yeah, so you guys will get to see how much I take the quality down when I help them out, and you know, make it just horrible. No one will watch it because it's associated with
No, I think
anything.
what Vance is wanting to do next year is basically revive an old script that never really got made that he was passionate about, and the original author of it kind of has given him permission to do this. And
Hmm.
Vance has prided himself for a long time as being no budget productions.
Right.
And I think that what he's wanting to do now that he's made 100 films or however many it's
Right.
been, is that instead of making 50 films in a year, I think that he wants to take a step back and concentrate on making one really cool film, and doing something a little bigger. And so I think that this will be the opportunity for us to do that. And then what we're going to be doing in December, hopefully, is the next Avalon project,
Right.
which is going to be called Christ
Oh man,
on Infinite
the
Excaliburs.
internet hates you. By the way, it always cuts out at like that vital piece. The internet hates you. It's going to be called. Say
Yeah.
what it's called again. One more time.
Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a really fun one too. So when will that come out though? Because if production's in December, it's probably going to be past that. I'm quite confident, right?
My guess, my hope, and it always just depends on how things work out. But my hope is that it would come out October 31st, 2022.
Nice, and it will be the best fan film that has ever existed until
Well,
August.
it's gonna be an interesting thing because one thing that I really love is like and they were originally doing this on the flash, and I figured out pretty quickly they were ripping it off of Rick and Morty, but they would have like these really creative episode titles like When Harry Met Harry, or Harry and the Harrisons, or The Flash and the Furious. And I was like, I want a film title like that. And then with like the subject of what I was doing, it was like, oh, Crisis on Infinite Excaliburs. So it's kind of a play on, of course, Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it's not going to be the same kind of thing. You'll figure out when you watch it that the title's kind of a silly joke going along with the plot of the film, and it's going to be a much more lighthearted and fun adventure, but you're going to have a really neat story where the characters are interacting with their doppelgangers across all of the multiverse. They'll see Prime Universe doppelgangers, Mirror Universe doppelgangers, Kelvin Universe doppelgangers, but it'll go even beyond that. You'll see like a Babylon 5 doppelgangers, and Orville doppelgangers, and Stargate and Galaxy Quest and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun little adventure.
So is it going to be spoiler? Have you watched Loki?
Not a lot of it, not as much as I've wanted to.
Okay. Do you have any interest in watching Loki?
Yeah,
Oh, that's unfortunate. Do you care about spoilers, out of curiosity?
not really.
Okay. Well, spoilers for anyone who does care about Loki. It's not going to be major spoilers, and I'll couch it so you probably won't even get it. Are you going to have one character fall for another character that's the same character, just from two different alternate universes?
Well,
How about you say it?
there is going to be something along those lines. It's not going to be that exactly, but you're going to have an Avalon universe character that's been there from the beginning, and that character's doppelganger in one of the universes is a woman instead of, and that character who's a woman is going to have a crush on our captain.
Nah.
And she'll have a very interesting reason why she has a crush on him, and he doesn't even know who she is, and she's all into him, and he's like, what is the deal with this person? And then at the end we'll find out why she has a crush on him. There'll be a plot twist revealed at the very end.
Nice.
So there is going to be something sort of along those lines that happens.
It'll be a lot of fun. So you guys definitely need to stay tuned for that. Of course, I'll be letting you know when it comes out. All right. Anything else to add? I think we've had a pretty good run. Anything else you wanted to talk about, or not?
Well, if
really?
the internet isn't too unkind to me, we have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now on our GoFundMe. You can find the link here at the top that he's pinned. It's pretty ambitious because we're trying to make some really cool fan films, and we'd really love your help in doing that.
Yeah, and is there a time date for people to get done? Why don't you tell us a couple of things about it? What can they do? Like, do they get like special things? How's that work?
Well, I don't really have the ability to do physical perks at the moment. So we're doing GoFundMe, and on GoFundMe you don't really do perks, but I will say that if you want to give a big enough contribution, you can kind of talk to me offline of GoFundMe, send me a PM or something, and because like there are tiers that I can offer where you can do things like have your voice in the film, or in one of the films, or you can maybe be a background actor, or even maybe get a speaking part if you give us enough money. So that is something we are talking about, or things like that, and we have a few of those that we've negotiated already, and so we're going to have some like big super donors that are going to, uh, across on the crowdfunding here in the next couple of days. But those options are available. If you would just want to talk to me about it personally, we can figure something out if you want to do voice or background actor, or have a speaking part or something like that.
Well,
There's not a time limit on it, but there are two interesting points. We've done 6 films so far, and we've only had one crowdfunding campaign throughout the course of 6 films. And when we crowdfunded Demons, we over-delivered, and we gave you Aaron Darkness and Avalon Lost that we funded ourselves. So we're one of the few that have over-delivered on our promises as far as putting out content. So with this crowdfunding campaign, we're not funding one film, we're funding 3. And that's why the goal is so high with $20,000, is that we're literally going to get 3 fan of this, and possibly some bonus content as well.
right. And so, the thing I always say is that if you can, or only if you want to, don't like ever, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, don't ever give money you can't afford. Don't go without, and
Sure.
not give to a fan film. But the other thing to think about, I guess, when you're looking at these is what do you want Trek to be? Where do you want Trek to go? And if Paramount Plus isn't doing it, then you should support fan films in whatever way you can. If you can support the fundraiser, the GoFundMe, which I put in there, definitely do it. Or if it's just by watching and commenting and telling your friends, if one of the
Sure.
one of the
that
main,
works too.
Yeah, one of the main issues with you on here, I don't want to get too much in. One of the main issues, we'll say, with criticisms from some that I'm not going to bring up specifically, is that they just complain about what Trek is, and they don't look at moving towards what they want Trek to be, or where they want Trek to go. And it's important to put your money where your mouth is, in either action or funds. And so, just to you guys watching and stuff, just take a look at it. Again, never go outside of what you can afford or money that you don't ever give money you can't live without. But even then, if you don't, check out their channel because I've linked their channel a couple of times, and just watch the stuff. If you really think Paramount is not going the way you want it to, then be the change you want to see in the world. And this is a good, solid. I mean, Joshua's a solid guy, even before we were making plans for me to do stuff with them or help them out or be a part of that. He's been on my Facebook, and we've talked for, I mean, a year now, I guess. Well, maybe a little less than a year. No, maybe a year. Anyway, for a while. And he's just a good guy. He's doing stuff that you guys obviously like. How many people have said they've enjoyed Avalon? So, support him in whatever way you feel is best, and definitely go check him out.
Well, I can tell you for sure that, like some of our bigger donors that we've had in the past came from simply people sharing. I met the guy from Ohio, David Agronsoni, because somebody shared our material with him. And so, yeah, definitely share. If you can't support us in a monetary sense, definitely share. That's always appreciated. And we want to make, classic, very positive view of the future type Star Trek.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. I'll have the stuff in the description as well. As always, it's been a fun time. I may do another stream later tonight. Probably not. But either way, we'll see you guys on the next one.
All right. Thank you.